Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. Today I want to talk about a bit of a stealth product reveal from Google. During their I/O event, they announced a lot of products, including, very virally VO3, which is a video generator with audio. And that got me thinking, I was like, wait a second, they have to have some sort of audio generator that works with the video thing. I'm sure that that's a separate model that's somehow aligned with the first one. So through poking around and some accident, I kind of discovered that they have a thing called Lyria, and actually they have Lyria 2. It's already a second version of Lyria that they've got out, and that is an audio generator, and it's very, very stealth. They really haven't talked about it, and I had to really kind of dig around to find what this is over here. And let me just move this out of the way so you can see. But they have this, it's console.google.com/vertex-AI. I'll put a link to the general thing in the description so you can go find it yourself. I have a Google Ultra account. Like I said, I spend more money, I think, on subscriptions per month for all of these AI things than I actually make on this channel, but such is life. But anyway, so you can see this over here. There is a way of doing text to audio, and it produces really good results with some caveats. They also have this PromptDJ MIDI thing, which allows you to produce different beats and things like that. A little bit of a DJ sort of thing. If you want to see, you can actually look at the, you can look at the code here. It is a substantial amount of code to build this thing, but it's actually just code. There's nothing really magical about this. It's just generated through that, and you can actually look at it. So really, really cool. I'm really hoping that YouTube does not do weird things like flagging for inappropriate music or copyrighted music or anything like that, because I'm obviously going to be trying to show some of that stuff today. But anyway, you can see that what you can do with this interface is you can, whoa, that's kind of interesting. I didn't even realize until right now that the colors actually change. So more blue, less blue, stuff like that. And obviously you have like a dubstep over here, and it takes just a minute for it to start up. So, right, so you got your beat, get rid of the dubstep. Just go to chill wave, just go to bossa nova, shoegaze, whatever that is. And it takes a minute for it to catch up, but it catches up. Let's go ahead and turn the bossa nova down. I don't know. I'm not real into all of this terminology, but let's try like K-pop. We'll just go with that by itself. Okay, so now we've shifted over to K-pop. Let's see what would happen if we did that with some plush strings in addition. There we go. So the strings start to come in, right? So it takes just a minute. It doesn't instantly do it, but you can hear it like blending all these things. So this is apparently real-time stuff. Let's go ahead and put in some funk while we're at it. I love the color schemes. That's pretty cool. So we should hopefully get some funk that'll come in. It's also super mellow now that I've taken out the dubstep and everything. A little funk. How about some drum and bass? Let's add some drum and bass and give it a little bit of punch to this whole thing. So. Oh yeah, okay, there we go. Right? And then we can take out the string. So you can see me using this in a party or something, right? This is like some sort of a live mix. So anyway, that's a fun toy, and obviously because it has the code here, and I guess you could actually even talk to the code assistant and have it build this out in a different manner. So pretty cool stuff, but what I really want to get into is this this media studio that they have. So this is image, I think this is text to speech, this is music, and this is video. Today I want to concentrate on this. You can see that the model is Lyria 2, and the number of results, this is a little unfortunate at this point. It doesn't really, I think the seed is actually basically the same for every one. So I haven't found it to be particularly useful to generate multiple results. So I'm just going to turn the number of results down to 1 here so that we can just try some things out and see what happens. There's an advanced option, but right now it's just the seed number, so you can cause it to do the same thing. There's negative prompting, and then there's positive prompting. So we can put in something basic just to start. So yeah, let's just go ahead and start with what it actually suggests here. So I'm going to have it generate 2 of these just to see. It does take a little bit of time for it to create this music. It's obviously using some sort of diffusion model. It says it generates 30 seconds worth of music, but it actually does 32.8 seconds. which I imagine is the dimensions of the image. They're probably using a fast Fourier transform into frequency space, so there actually is probably an image of what this piece of music looks like. They use standard diffusion models with images, and then they convert it back to samples. You can obviously download these. Sorry, you can't actually see that because it's right there. You can click export and stuff like that and export the music out if you want to, or you can just listen to it in the browser here. So let's take a listen. Little too synthy for my taste. Okay, let's try the second one. Yeah, so see, you can tell that they're very, very similar pieces of music, which is a little unfortunate. And notice again, they're 32.8 seconds. At 44,100 samples per second, that's like 1.46 million. Anyway, that might be what it is. It might be just based on a sample rate. But let's try some more interesting prompts than that. So I'm going to tell it I want a full orchestra playing an emotionally charged cinematic piece. Sorry, it's very grayed out down here. Swelling from a few instruments to a full orchestral crescendo, then fading into silence. Beautifully heartfelt performance, professionally recorded. I actually had originally put in John Williams, but it flags it if you put that in, or if you put in REM, or if, you know, anybody's name. It basically won't do it with names, so you have to kind of come up with a cheat around that. So I thought cinematic piece would probably make sense. So let's take a listen to our two options here. See if we get kind of a swell. I don't know. I'm feeling like we kind of have the first piece of it, not the whole thing. Yeah, a little disappointing there. Okay, and a little more synthy. Yesterday it sounded better when I was doing this, but very, very similar. Very, very similar. So I feel like you're not really getting good randomization here. So let me try this again and put in a negative prompt. I haven't really tried this yet, but let's see, synthesizer. So we'll put in, you know, I don't want that, cheesy, ugly. So we'll try some basic ideas like this, and we'll go ahead and redo this. I'm only going to generate one because, like I said, I just don't sense any advantage of doing more than one because it really doesn't seem to be reseeding. So currently it randomizes the seed, but you can put in a number on your own, but that means it'll produce the exact same thing every single time because the noise is going to be the same. So let's give this a try again, and we'll generate one and see if we have a little bit better luck by telling it that we don't want negative prompt. We don't want synthesizer, cheesy music, you know, a non-professional or ugly or anything like that. Alrighty, so after a few seconds, notice it's always 32.8 seconds. So I think that it's converted everything into like an image format, and it's just denoising that image and then converting it to samples using fast Fourier transform, something along those lines. That's pretty standard stuff, but the consequence is it produces exactly the same dimension image, which means it's always the same number of seconds for the piece of music. Also pay attention to the beginning and the end here. So better. Okay, let's see if we get a swell. No, not really a swell. It does have a John Williams-esque kind of sound with the piano in there, but it certainly is not... What I notice is it doesn't really obey the changes over time. You kind of can put in a mood, but not really give it, you know, some sort of build or anything like that. So now I'm going to try one, and I'm going to see if REM will actually work. It seems like per people's names, like if you put in John Williams, it won't work. This kind of worked last time, so we'll see. And one thing that's really interesting is that it actually will do vocals. It'll do vocal lines. In this particular case, I'm talking about a singer who mutters, but, you know, says things like, "I'm eerily understood," right? So if you look back at like really old REM original, their first few albums, Michael Stipe, you know, was like, you could like listen to it over and over and over again, which I did. And you could like repeat the sounds, but what he was actually saying, nobody knew. So anyway, hopefully it will replicate that, but you'll actually hear that there will be a singer that actually, you know, says things. Now, as far as the beats per minute and the exact instrumentation, it doesn't seem to pay too much attention to that. Again, listen to the beginning and the ending. I'm going to get back to that in just a second, but listen to this.
I'm eerily understated, head. But obstinate and ain't been straight.
Yeah, right? So now we're getting that kind of like, what the hell is he actually saying? So it's okay. I mean, it's not perfect, but again, it's pretty good. So again, now listen to the end of this piece. Okay, so that leads me to my big takeaway from this. This stuff was trained incorrectly. The data set is not correct. What we've got is we've got 32.8 seconds worth of music, but it's just as if you just lifted it from the middle of a piece of music. There's no beginnings, there's no endings. I've been very specific in my prompts. I've said out of silence, have a soul piano come in or something. It ignores that entirely. It doesn't seem to understand beginnings and endings. I think the problem is if you imagine that you took every piece of music in the world, let's say that they average 4 minutes long, because there's like long symphonies and there's short Beatles songs that are like 2.5 minutes, but let's say it's 4 minutes long. If you're taking 32-second bits of all those songs and just kind of randomly sampling it, you're only going to get a very small amount of beginnings and endings of songs. You're mostly going to get middles. And if you don't compensate for that in your data set, you're going to basically have a model that's incapable of understanding what it is to be the beginning of a piece of music and the end of a piece of music. You have to kind of overrepresent that. The reason I know this is because back in 2018, when the virtual dinosaurs were roaming the earth in terms of AI, I tried to work on this with conditional GANs. I got pretty far actually, but it was very primitive at the time. But what I realized at the time was you had to really overrepresent the beginnings and endings of pieces of songs. I was doing 10-second chunks at the time as opposed to 30-second chunks just for memory and training purposes. But anyway, you basically have to punch those up by 5 to 10 times. So basically in the data set, if you have a beginning and then 5 middle pieces and then an ending or something, you just basically take the beginning and the ending and you just replicate that 5 times. So you duplicate it. So in the data set, you've got the equivalent amount of beginnings and endings plus all the middle pieces. So you can train on that. And if you don't do that, then you get exactly this effect, which is you just get the interior of the song without the exterior being there. Now, is it cool? Does it sound really good? Yes, it does, especially considering this is very much of a stealth release. They haven't really given us access to this yet. I think it almost might be an accident this is here. So shh about this. Don't go spreading it too wide. But of course, if you want to play with it, like I said, I'll leave a link in the description so you can go there. You may or may not be able to access it without an Ultra account. I'm not sure because I've got that. So I'm not exactly sure, but it's really cool what they've got at this point, and the quality is good. And so it promises something amazing in the future, but at present it is still wanting. We're seeing the same thing with the audio and the video generation of VO3. If you listen to the audio generation in particular in VO3, the videos that it produces, what you get is you get kind of a popping sound coming in, or else a piece of music that's already going on or something along those lines. And I'm pretty sure it's because they're using Lyria behind the scenes to generate these pieces of music that go along with these video sequences. And because they haven't done enough training on the beginning and ending of songs, the data set is incorrectly weighted. You've got this thing where it just always sounds like it's the middle of something instead of the beginning or ending of something. So one more just for fun. I'm going to do a grunge rock band, and here I want it to be 120 beats per minute. It doesn't seem to really respect that, and I want these people to be saying "We love lollipops" over and over again because I don't know, just because I feel like it. Some other things here while we're waiting for this to be generated. It would be lovely if we could do audio to audio here instead of just text to audio, so you could input an audio source and say, replicate something along these lines. That would be great. And it would also be great to expose some other controls like the CFG, which is the classifier free guidance. I remember that now because last time I couldn't remember. If you haven't caught that video, check it out up here. But anyway, the CFG and the strength and things like that, it would be great if those could be exposed over here for us to play with so that we could adjust some of these qualities. All right, I just realized I have ugly as a negative prompt here, which is a little unfortunate because it probably means that it's going to be too beautiful and grunge rock should be ugly. But let's take a listen. That's pretty good. Not a bad guitar. Let's see if we get to... Sometimes it says "We love lollipops." I've had it generate music where other times it won't do that. Sounds like this one's just going to be a guitar version of it. So we may have to regenerate and see if we can get something better. Yeah, so it just cut off. All right, let's try putting in pretty and well recorded. So, let's try adding some things to this. And like I said, I've gotten it to do the "We love lollipops" before. I used this prompt yesterday as I was testing this stuff out. So I'm replicating that just for sake of time here. But anyway, what I found was about 50% of the time it actually generates the lyrics and 50% it doesn't. So let's try again. See, it's right in the middle of that. I'm really liking the guitar though. Sounds good. Oh, it's weird. I don't know why it hasn't generated the "We love lollipops." All right, I had to adjust the prompt a little bit, as you've seen down here, but I finally got it to actually sing the lines, and it's actually really funny. Okay. So again, notice it just cuts in, right? There's no correct introduction to the piece of music. I can understand at 32 seconds that it would not have a proper outro, but it should at least be able to do a proper intro. So good grunge sound, yeah.
We love lollipops, we
Yeah.
love lollipops, and we love... We love lollipops, we love lollipops.
I'm imagining Kurt Cobain singing
that. We love lollipops.
Yeah, so the beginning and the ending, you can definitely hear need work. The entire thing feels like a very experimental product, but then again, it's exactly what it is. This was a stealth release. They really didn't tout it too much, but I think it's really cool to hear what they've got. In terms of the quality of the sound, I think they're competing with the best models out there, things like Suno and stuff, although Suno definitely has a more robust sort of ecosystem. It has beginnings and endings. It does much better. Variable length songs, things like that. Also notice here that there are a ton of more things on Vertex AI here, including Agent Garden and Agent Engine and the Collab Enterprise and the Stream Real-Time Prompt Gallery. I mean, if you guys want me to do testing on some other ones of these things, I haven't really looked into them yet. By all means, let me know in the comments. While you're down there, if you don't mind liking the video, it really helps because other people can find the video. That's how YouTube's algorithm works. And if you want to see more of this kind of stuff, please consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.